All right, we have another podcast, and I feel like that's what this entire, 3-year anniversary is really all about. The celebration of wrestling for me, and me communicating with you my thoughts, my theories, and my love for professional wrestling around the time of SummerSlam. SummerSlam. Yesterday was probably, I think, in a strong while, the biggest wrestling show surprise, like going into something with super low expectations and being blown off my feet. I think there's a level of things that I've ranked that way, like walked in with very low expectation and been blown away. WWE pay-per-views and special events have done that for the most part for a minute for me. I'll walk in, whatever, TLC, blah, 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 and then walk out like mind blown. But like the level of expectancy that was like so low, especially for like a takeover event. I was blown. I don't think there's a level of low expectations to what I received in terms of what happened and being so overwhelmed with how great a show was than this. This show takes the cake. Newsworthy items, amazing matches, great commentary, just crowd, like everything about NXT Takeover Brooklyn. And I'm not like gushing like in terms of, like NXT is the greatest thing. It hasn't been that great recently. But they were able to make chicken salad. Hello, boys and girls. You are now listening, if you're on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud, and watching, if you're on YouTube, Peter Talks WWE NXT TakeOver 3. This is my review. Yesterday, and I guess if you're on YouTube now, if you're watching this now, earlier I posted my predictions. I recorded it yesterday, posted it today because technology issues. It's been a while since I've done this, and I ran into a little bit of technology problems. So I was able to upload it today. So you got basically the post, like my predictions after the show. So if they lined up or they didn't line up, that's the fun in it all. And also my prediction to tonight's pay-per-view, which is SummerSlam. I don't plan to be on here that long. I just wanted to just go over things of the show, just go over the results, see if they matched up to my predictions, and then just maybe do a surprise phone call to somebody to see if they're around to actually talk a little bit about the show. Like, they don't know I'm calling. I just decided last second that I was going to do this. So hopefully it'll be a successful call. Hopefully it'll be, we'll see. If they don't pick up the first time, I'll possibly send a text to see if they want to do it. But if it doesn't work out, I'll just cut it out and possibly do something down the line with this said person. Well, anyway, so I want to go into... to say I was surprised that this show ended up as good as it did. It's true, but that's the fault of me and maybe a lot of WWE NXT fans. As of late, they've been kind of licking their wounds trying to find the new big stars, the new big storylines, because you take that Finn Balor, Bayley, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, Shinsuke Nakamura, Tyler Breeze, Finn Balor. You look at like that entire caravan of NXT alumni, and when they basically got called up to the main roster, man, like it left NXT in a situation where they had to build new stars. And they plucked some from the indie market, and they had some homegrown guys that they had to sort of basically reboot and recharge their entire brand. Because at one point you would think NXT was going to be like this new super indie thing that was just going to have this sustained success because of the stars. Well, again, being that it's developmental, you would had call-ups, and you would have to uproot basically the entire roster and start fresh. And something I said, one of the biggest things in how we operate as humans is that we don't like having things taken away. We would much rather grow out of things, or given the decision to choose whether to follow it anymore. That roster that I said that was previous to that are now on the main roster, we got really invested in those guys, like extremely invested in those guys, and to have them basically just be plucked, like it's tough to rebuild a relationship. If I was to draw a relation, like the whole relationships, real life relationships with people, when we break up with someone, unless you have like a cold ass heart, it's hard to find someone else to fill in where that previous love interest fell off. So there's like this moment of basically gaining trust and getting to know someone, and to reinvest in a new storyline, reinvest in a new chapter in your life with a loved one. It's the same with NXT. Now, with these new stars that they have right now, your Bobby Roode, your Amber Moon, your Asuka, your iconic duo, your No Way Jose, your Orny Lorcan, your AOP, Authors of Pain, your Tommaso Ciampa, your DIY with Johnny Gargano. Even though those guys were loved, it's still like it was like a thing where you are replacing people, and it just, the reinvestment into these storylines were tough. And the last couple of takeovers have been good, but you can still tell that there was this transition period for the fans, not for the workers, because the workers will always be workers. They've given this opportunity. Now they have the ball; they can run with it until they're called up. And I think about this Brooklyn 3 show is that like they tipped all the characters involved, all the storylines, and all the work in the ring tipped, because we know the finishers now, we know the backgrounds, we know the storylines. We're invested. We're uberly invested again. It's not to the point of Finn Balor and Bayley, because they were there for such a long time. They are the fabric of what the NXT we know today. They are the fabric. But man, if there's a close as close as you can get to having that sort of feeling of this new birth of a relationship with wrestlers, it's now. And I think we all took it for granted. If there's any other podcast out there recording something, all of them are saying the same shit. They're saying, wow, what a surprise. I did not expect this. I had low expectations. They're all saying this. I guarantee you, whether it's Wade Keller and whatever podcast he's doing, whether it's Jason Powell, whether it's Solomonster Sounds Off, whether it's just Keita and Jay, you name the podcast, they're all saying the same thing, and they're all probably like saying, like I said earlier, this is the biggest surprise of any and all pay-per-view special events that they probably ever witnessed, seen, and come out on the opposite end and feeling so positive about the future of that brand. say until they uproot these guys and take them to the main roster. And then we have to hit the reboot button, and then they're going to have another valley until they get, a couple of guys that are sustainable, that can sustain the brand until they have to go, which I think could be a real problem just for the wrestling world altogether because of all this hoarding, and you have but so much space on the main roster, and then NXT, they're going to have to hit they're going to hit a point where they can't bring in new people. They're going to have to be NXT lifers. I'm not saying that NXT will end up being its own brand, but I think to a certain degree that will kind of almost have to be that way. Not everyone can make it to the main roster. And people want to work. NXT in itself is a good gig. It really is. It would be a matter of, would they be able to cross-pollinate the brands? Say NXT into Superstars, into SmackDown, into Raw. Can you cross-pollinate these guys into the Cruiserweight division, the 205 Live? That's where they're going to have to run into. The cross-pollination of NXT roster guys into the main roster storylines and events and what have you. Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, things of that nature. Not necessarily the Royal Rumble itself, but not like the big storylines. Not WrestleMania, you know what I'm saying? Not really necessarily SummerSlam, not those two, but every other one surrounding that. Both brands are still hurting from the brand split a little, and this SummerSlam is going to be a reflection of that tonight. But if you just were able to sort of get some guys at NXT into different small or somewhat significant roles, cross-pollinating into the main roster spots, and then coming back down to NXT, not as a demotion, but as a brand, loyal to your brand, I think that could work. I really think that could work. So without further ado, let's go into NXT TakeOver. Let's go into the review of TakeOver. And again, I was blown away. The opening match. Oh my God, the opening match. It was tough. It's like, I said, man, these guys, New York, Brooklyn was hot as hell. And also, it was kind of like an alumni kind of thing. They shot in the crowd to different NXT alumni. I think Samoa Joe was there, Bayley, Becky, and Charlotte were there. Shinsuke Nakamura was there. Who else did they shoot in the crowd? And we were all waiting for Adam Cole to be shot because that's what they do, especially with prospects coming in. They'll shoot whoever the top prospect coming in is, but that didn't happen, and that happened for a reason. The Brooklyn crowd was super hot for this show, and I think that worked in the best favor of the actual wrestlers who went out there and kicked ass and took names. Now, you had this first match, Andrade Cien Almas, and apparently they didn't get rid of Cien. They just, on this wiki description, they took his name out. Talk about a match that was hard to beat. The crowd was hot as hell for this match. Hot as hell. Those guys went in and laid the foundation. Now, you could either said, fuck, we can't follow up after that, and go out and stink up the rest of the show, or you could use that as a means to say, hey, we could do just as good as that. Fuck those guys. But at that moment, you're thinking, oh, whoever has to come up after this fucking match is crazy. Now, I predicted that Almas was going to win, and he did win. You look at what's happening with this storyline, and the addition of Vega, Zelina Vega is I think as crucial as a valet addition to Maurice and The Miz, if not bigger, because you're talking about The Miz. The Miz has always been okay. The guy headlined a WrestleMania at some point, right? He's always been a champion at some point. He's held all the belts. The only belt The Miz hasn't held is the Divas Championship or the Women's Championship. And I'm still going on. It wouldn't kill his character so much. It would just build heat. It would get that Andy Kaufman heat. If he was like, I'm going to do the trifecta. I would be the first male to win the women's division title. And let's just say he did win it and then had it technically taken from him, but he could still say that he won it. That would be so great. But that's the thing. Miz is a made person. You add Maurice, he was kind of flounder, but whatever. He's the Miz. He's had his opportunities. Maurice brought a new edge to his character. But the difference between that and this is that, like, Almas was ground zero. Ground zero. He came in with high expectations, and they didn't know what the fuck to do with him. And now the storyline of him kind of like getting coached by this amazingly beautiful woman. I mean, she is so beautiful. The biggest heel in wrestling right now is Austin Aries. He's the biggest heel in all of wrestling. At first, who was the heel? I think it was the guy who sings. He was in. You know what? Never mind that. Never mind that. Anyway, the biggest heel in all of wrestling is Austin Aries. To be able to be with the Selena Vega girl, it's amazing. So she's coaching him, telling him to get serious. Even when she debuted, she came in with a bang. She spots him. He almost loses the match. He's like, well, fuck it. I'm just gonna get the fuck out of here, get some chicks. I'm gonna go fuck. Go drink, go fuck. And he runs into this girl. And at first, I thought it was like an ex-girlfriend kind of thing, or some sort of like previous fling, jealous. I don't know, but it ended up, she just wanted to coach the guy. She wanted to be in his best interest and tell him that he was better than this, that he needs to fucking focus and get serious. And it's a brilliant, brilliant story. And just this alone, just over the past month, he went from a flailing, almost disappointment that was going to fucking get thrown in a garbage can, slapped OVW on the fucking trash can, and sent back to fucking Japan. But this turned everything around. And even in the match itself, he still had his flaws that would get his ass handed to him, and she would just get on his ass. The commentary was pointing out, like, he's taking his eye off the ball. What is his problem? Fucking Vega is working to make sure that he is the best that he can be by staying focused. Now, the match, I said, Gargano can afford to lose because that is not his blood feud. There's no blood feud. Even the fact that, like, the reason why they're put together is almost the same reason of Randy Orton and Rusev. One guy was like, I need an opponent, and then then Vega was like, Gargano's looking for an opponent. Almas is your opponent. And that's basically what it is. So you got these two guys in here just basically trying to just win a match. Gargano is still in this thing with Gargano. And he could afford to lose to Almas, a guy who with momentum behind him. Johnny Gargano hasn't been in the ring in a while. He's rusty. He's still got his mind on Gargano, on Ciampa. So he can afford to lose. He is untouchable right now. The energy he got from that New York crowd was incredible. You think it was Daniel Bryant coming in. They loved them some Johnny Wrestling. They had signs in the audience, the little like circle face thing with the closed eye. He's made. He could lose this match, and I think people like Almas enough now with Vega to where it's okay. This clean victory is okay. That was one prediction that I got right. So we're going to go to Sanity, which ended up being Alexander Wolf and Eric Young. Before Killian Dane tagged in, when Alexander Wolf versus AOP, Alexander Wolf was in a situation where he needed to tag out. Eric Young just jumped on the fucking thing, was like, fuck this, I'm the guy. And because Dane hadn't tagged in yet, it was still an option. So you could say it was like the Freebird rule, I don't think it was the Freebird rule as much it was just a technical thing. I think the tag team champions, if they were to win the tag team championship, they would be the tag team champions, not Killian Dane, I think they got another storyline for Killian Dane, being that Killian Dane was also in the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. They're already sizing this guy up to be a monster on the main roster. They're set on him being a presence. I just hope it's not like, every other big burly dude that they just end up turning into jokes out the wild. But I think Dane has a lot of potential on the main roster, and why use him in a tag team, NXT tag team scenario when it's a bigger field. There's more out there for him to do. So my prediction was that AOP retains and basically hold on to the belts for a while. Don't uproot them from NXT yet, because again, people are growing a liking to them, and it'd be a shame that they get called up to the main roster so soon. Even though the tag team division in both Raw and SmackDown are very depleted, even more so that the fucking Dash and Wilder, I can't even think of their name right now. Dash and Wilder, they're out again because of an injury. The Revival, they're out of the tag team division at Raw because another injury. So you can't bring them up quite yet, even as monsters. It's just not time. It's just not time for them. They got to have formidable foes, and they would have to go to Raw. They can't go to SmackDown. They just can't go to SmackDown. They would have to go to Raw, and they would basically, if I were doing like quote unquote fantasy booking, if the Shield, this new reunion Shield between Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins, I could see AOP being that young, brash, monster heel tag team that would basically poke at what they're doing with those with Dean and Tyler. But I was wrong. But that also means that they can get a rematch. What you're dealing with right now is Eric Young, who's getting his chops back up. Alexander Wolf, who stole the show. I told you in my prediction that I think there was a potential that he was going to steal the show in that match. I like him a lot. The guy's very talented. He bumps really well. I think he has a high ceiling in terms of like a villain who's very random, someone who's an actual possible threat, very much like a Luke Harper. I could see a tag team with him and Luke Harper if he came up, or even a feud between the two. You can do one of things, and he could be what I called last time a thorn in the thigh. he could be a sore in the side of a thorn in the side of a lot of babyface guys. But you can actually they're going to get their rematch. AOP could probably win the belts back. You can get and then like a rubber match. You can extend this feud for quite some time, and it's for the best of both until they can get a formidable tag team division back in NXT, because it really is lacking. It's extremely lacking. I mean, it's almost a la Vince McMahon. So I got that wrong. The new tag team champions are Sanity, but this is Alexander Wolf and Eric Young, and not Killian Dane. The next match, I had Aleister Black beating Hideo Itami. That's what happened. They had a really, really good match. And by the way, that tag team division match, if I was to say one thing, make one more comment, is that the growth of AOP as a tag team, you could see the growth. You could see the improvement. Those guys have been working really hard. And kudos to those guys. Kudos to those guys for the job they played in that tag team. It wasn't just Eric Young and Killian and Alexander Wolf being the ring generals. I think the guys over in AOP held their ground immensely. There's definitely room for improvement, but you can see they're making the improvement. And plus, there's also a thing that happened where you were wondering if Nikki Cross was going to get in the crossfire somehow. She did, to the point where she dived onto like Razor, and it looks like he was about to like drop her somewhere. He's a lucky fucker. He copped the feel. She's fine. And then Dane just came out of nowhere and crushed the both of them in this table that was set up earlier in the match over by the side. So I guess it was Razor was taken out. It was a brutal. Like, both Nikki caught the blunt of it, but that's what they do. They sacrifice each other, if you haven't noticed, in certain situations. But yeah, Aleister Black did defeat Hideo Itami, and probably his toughest match since. And that's the thing. Something I said in the past podcast about him meeting up with more foes that would give him more work, because at first he was just knocking niggas out left and right. Sorry about that. Knocking motherfuckers out left and right without any kind of opposition. This one, Kyle O'Reilly, and now this match it was his toughest match yet. And again, Hideo Itami, the story of Hideo Itami is more than I think Aleister Black. Aleister Black has the rocket ship attached to him, and he's on the way to the stratosphere. If he can stay healthy, I think he's going to be just fine. But as for Hideo Itami, he's been injured so much, and he's just been down at NXT, just sort of there in like this injury purgatory mid-card thing, and the frustration story, and now that he's lost, he has to go. He has to go to the main roster. You have to see what he could contribute on the main roster. You have to either shit or get off the pot with this guy. Again, this is a needed victory for Aleister Black, even more so a needed loss for Hideo, for him to just go into the sunset. I don't know who else he could possibly be mad at and feud with that will make any kind of significance for him to get himself in title contention. And plus, no spoiler, but they've sort of moved that ship has sailed for Hideo Itami. So don't be surprised if, he does a run-in tonight. But I did get that right. Ember Moon versus Asuka. This, by far, more, and you can take it however you want, and I'm not doing this on a feminist crap. I'm not doing this on some whatever. I am not at all some aficionado to, wrestling and the star system and all that crap. I could give flying fucks about that kind of stuff. And I don't like to make like proclamations of like, oh, this is the best, this is this, and this is that. That's not my podcast. That's not my vlog. That's not even my approach. But to give credit where credit is due, this match is by far the match of the year. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. I don't care. I don't care. This, if you don't consider this the match of the year, not even like, oh yeah, it's a tender. It's, it's up there with like, Okada and what the hell that dude's name is. It eludes me right now. I'm so sorry, but I hate when I do this. I totally drew a blank on this guy's name, but it's not important. Either way, I'm saying it's a better match than that, than both, than the trilogy. It was heated. It was blood feud. It was competitive. It was athletic. It was near falls that mattered. There was finishers that were hit. There's a storyline. There's character. It was everything you wanted. And you look at Omega, Kenny Omega. I apologize for those who were going to give me shit about this, but it's Kenny Omega versus Okada. Better. It's a better match. Just one. Well, it was part 2 of a series, but maybe there's a third. Maybe there's a rubber match sometime soon that I think is good enough to be a sort of opening SmackDown match on like a SmackDown pay-per-view. I think it's that good. There were moments in the match where Asuka was looking at Bayley, Flair, and Lynch. Like there were moments you could see her clearly looking over, and the commentary was addressing it. And the only thing they fell short of, and you can't take it away from the ring, and I get it, but if they would at least get 2 shots of the girls looking at Asuka as an actual threat, like, whoa, like, holy shit, she's the real deal. Just shots of amaze, and even in Amber Moon, shocked and amazed at, like, these are the girls coming for our spots. If they could have got at least 1 shot, or maybe 2 when she looked over. There was moments where she had Asuka had Amber Moon in, like, in a position where she was just fucking her up. Like, this like, technical chain catch style of wrestling where she was just bending limbs and just stretching her like a pretzel. Like, just bending her all out of shape. And she was looking over at the girls like, yep, this is going to be you real soon. They missed on an opportunity to get their expressions, whether it's, yeah, fuck you, or like, holy shit, you are the real deal. That's the only thing that they missed that opportunity on, to get their expressions. But Amber Moon, she's better than I thought she was. She went in there and held her own, even though you could still see that Asuka was the ring general. I think Amber Moon fucking killed it. Like, I was like, because even in my predictions, I was like, Amber Moon is not good enough to be someone who should beat her. And as I'm watching this, I'm like, oh, maybe she is. And I was like, if she did win, I was like, yeah, I think she deserves that victory. But, there was moments in the match where the heel and Asuka got out. She put the ref in between the two of them as Amber Moon was going for there was a first or second, that stunner thing she does off the top rope, the solar eclipse. And then there was a grabbing of the tights that the ref was like, no, you can't do that, yo. Like, what the fuck? And then there was a moment where, what was another moment? Like a heelish moment. Well, anyway, you can see clearly that Asuka was hook or crook. She was trying to win this match. And Amber Moon was doing it the right way. And, there was a moment where I think Amber Moon was trying to get like some sort of high spot that got reversed into Asuka lock, and she got it in. She finally got it in, and Amber Moon tapped out. So the storyline was Amber Moon's move, as destructive as it is, as much as they made it into the super destructive thing, Asuka was she's still that much stronger. She's still that much better that she kicked out. And Amber was not able to escape the Asuka lock. She has, that is the edge. And it doesn't take away from Amber Moon. The reception she got she was better off losing, because she walked out of there with an applause, like standing ovation. I was kind of in tears. She was in tears. I think everyone was like, okay, you have our attention, Amber. If we were ever on the fence about you, you're over now. Like, we're over that. We love you, Amber Moon. We're going to support you the next shot that you get. Now, I don't know whether she goes to the back of the line or she is still hovering, getting her revenge, because that's her thing. The look on her face is like, I am not, very much like Roger Strong, I am not I am not over this. If you're going to hover over it, if it doesn't happen in NXT, I think there's a chance that you can take this storyline to even the main roster in a big show like a SummerSlam or even a WrestleMania. You can tell this story, that this blood feud between these two individuals, it's something that's money. It's money. If WWE stick to it, it's money, and I hope they do. I really hope that they do. Again, match of the year: Drew McIntyre, Bobby Roode. What I suspected of a match, I got the prediction wrong. I had Bobby Roode retaining. Had Bobby Roode retaining in a disqualification by the Ring of Honor guys coming in and kicking both their asses, right? Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Roode was not a blood feud. It was a top contender situation that, again, Bobby Roode's foe is Roderick Strong. So whatever match this was going to be like basically a better man win, who's the better wrestler, not necessarily who wins this feud. And you got two guys who came from a very sports entertainment background. Drew McIntyre, he was a chosen one. He was a SmackDown guy. He ended up in 3MB. Just a very methodical, very ground-based, big guy style. The same with Bobby Roode. Bobby Roode, he was in NXT. You know, even though he was in the Indies, his whole thing was, I'm going to wrestle this WWE sports entertainment style. And that's what happened in this. That's exactly what happened in this scenario of a match. Even though there were some big spots, the story was being told in the ring, and it was all good. If you look at what they were following up in terms of, like, just to say Almas and Gargano, Asuka and Ember Moon, that was a lot to follow up on. And I'm almost to the point where I would say the match with Asuka and Ember Moon could have easily been the main event. But the angle in the end of this is that McIntyre pulled out the victory. He was able to pull out the victory, and Roode, probably one of the best matches I've seen Roode in ever, because I didn't watch TNA. I don't know much about Beer Money and his performance in Beer Money. I don't know much about his Bobby Roode run in NXT because I don't watch NXT. All I've seen is him in NXT, and he's been kind of out of place, and because he's been fighting like these indie darling guys. Now he went up against a guy that basically fights in the same way, so he was able to bring out the best of what he's good at, which is this sports entertainment style. And as I'm watching this, I go, okay, I see him on the main roster almost tomorrow, right? But again, he's someone that's needed. He's someone that's still needed on the NXT brand. You can't cut the cord yet. People are invested in the glorious thing. Even though it looks like he's no more than a intro, this match solidified that he's actually someone we would like to see wrestle more down on the NXT brand. He loses clean. He gets the fuck out of there. So again, my prediction was that these guys that would like to call the honor roll would have came in and beat the living crap out of both of them, starting this faction, started the storyline, or what have you. But Roode loses, gets the fuck out of there. Next thing you know, Red Dragon, who actually showed up for, I forgot to even mention this, but they showed up and beat the fuck out of AOP. They beat the living, they showed up. Oh man, I just drew a blank. Yeah, they showed up and beat the fuck out of Sanity. They beat the fuck out of Sanity. They beat the living. I'm so sorry that I forgot to even mention that, but they first showed up. Sanity wins the championship. They beat the fuck out of Sanity. They destroyed them. And then they showed up after the Drew McIntyre win. And then In comes Adam Cole. They stomp a mud hole in Drew McIntyre, and it seems that, like, again, it was a better man win with Rude, and like there's no storyline. Maybe Rude wants a rematch, but he has to deal with Roderick Strong. And I think even NXT doesn't see Roderick Strong as a champion for that brand. They see him as a story, but they don't see him as a champion. So he could just go do the Roderick Strong thing for a while, maybe come back, but like you can't have this clusterfuck of a storyline where you got this guy who wants a rematch for his belt while he's dealing with a new hot faction that is Red Dragon, which is refreshing to see. I was sitting there going like, wow, Red Dragon in a WWE ring is so fucking cool. And now you got Adam Cole showing up looking like fucking Shawn Michaels and shit. It was just an amazing thing to see. And whatever they squeeze out of this whole thing, whether it's the faction, they're called Kings of Honor. That's their faction name. Honor Roll was my thing. I think it's so cool that they would have went with it. But I think Kings of Honor sounds like a Ring of Honor pay-per-view, right? I thought they were just going to try to get away from the of honor thing and then just so, you know, Ring of Honor doesn't sound like a fucking Ring of Honor pay-per-view. But if it works, it works. He has to move on from the Bullet Club. They all have to move on from the Bullet Club. I think Red Dragon is what I'm most interested in seeing. But like, I'm curious to what they do with Adam Cole. I'm really curious to what they do with Adam Cole. I'm really curious to what they are as a faction. Is Leo Rush coming in, right? Right? Is he coming in to be part of this? Is Roderick Strong going to form, even if they do this weird clusterfuck of rematch and the blood feud with Rude and Strong, and you know, you have the NXT guys joining forces to fight off the ROH guys. Is this going to be the storyline? Will they have their own style Survivor Series? Will it be this faction of these outsiders, these intruders on this brand? Is this the thing that they're going to try to do? They're going to try to relive this invasion storyline that we've seen before in different, in different promotions. Is this what's going to happen? Is this what's going to happen? It can be interesting, but you don't want to pigeonhole. You don't want to pigeonhole these guys into. If the end result is to make it to the main roster, you don't want to pigeonhole these guys into these factions that will stay with NXT. If the end result is to move on to the main roster, okay, so we'll become that much more invested in what the fuck they got going on, only to have them leave. You know, that's why the Bullet Club didn't happen with Finn Balor down at NXT, you know? Like, that's why things like that didn't happen. Now, you look at Sanity, they are a faction, but they're not like something we knew of, this inside joke. Like this inside, like the Bullet Club. They were like this inside indie thing. The Broken Gimmick. This indie outside thing. There's no connection to Sanity to any kind of thing outside of what they're doing for NXT. There's no smartness connected to this. But for the ROH guys, there is. There's something attached to the Bullet Club. There's something attached. The Broken Gimmick. There's something attached. So we'll see, man. NXT just got really interesting. New champions, new performers, streaks being held on to, the ascend of Almas, and also with a loss, Amber Moon. We'll see. We'll see. There was a one shot also in the show where there was a skybox and you had like a bunch of things going on. One in particular, the iconic duo who wasn't on the card, the two Australian girls, without even having really know their names, they're in the face of Daniel Bryan, and I'm thinking, oh shit, maybe this is a Brie return, you know, because they're going to try to seduce him to get back on the main roster. To get on the main roster, Brie, and they could try to seduce him and really try to seduce him, and Brie could be like, they could do like a quick little return of Brie Bella. To stop those two, to get the fuck off my man kind of thing. You also had Roderick Strong talking to Kurt Angle, which was interesting. You had someone on the phone. I think no, the Kalisto was on the floor, but it was a bunch of shit going on. It was an interesting dynamic to see. It looked like something from the Muppet Show. But that was it, man. That's basically my review of NXT Takeover. And something I'm going to do now, a friend of mine, she goes by the name of Akita Hubbard. If this doesn't make it, I'll just hopefully talk to her again. I hope that this works. She doesn't know I'm calling, and I've kind of been isolated for quite some time from them because I've been focused on my screen printing stuff, and Akita and Jay have been doing really well in the podcast world. I'm really proud of the both of them. And I haven't been able to interact wrestling with them in quite some time, almost to the point where I'm thinking they probably think I hate them or something. Last night, in the first hour of NXT, I was able to interact with them on Facebook. Again, she doesn't know I'm calling her, so I'm gonna chance this and just get to see her reaction before I call this podcast quits. Let's hope this works.
Hello?
Oh, you picked up.
Yes, sir. How are you?
Hey, this is Peter.
Yeah, I know what it is. How are you, sir?
I'm super. You don't know this. I was gonna do this is a surprise, but I'm actually recording. This is so good for the podcast. I think this is great. I'm so glad you picked up. I'm doing a review of NXT Takeover right now, and I decided to call you, do a special call in to get your response, get your thoughts on what happened for NXT Takeover, if that's okay.
Yeah, right now is not a good time, but
Why?
can we do it later? Because I'm talking to my best friend right now and trying to watch SummerSlam.
Oh man! So, what? Can you give me just 1 minute? Can you give me just a quick thought on something that stood out?
I thought you meant like 20, 30, 40 minutes.
No, I mean if you were available for it, I would have want 15. But like, if you could give me just your overall impression and just a touch until we do another podcast together, because I'm gonna do one of SummerSlam, and I would like to have you aboard.
Yeah, of course. Okay, well, last night, the NXT Takeover Brooklyn 3, it was a very good show. The first 4 matches was really good. The first match was Johnny Gargano versus Almas. That was a very good match. I loved the ending. He had his manager, what's her name? I cannot remember her name right now.
With who? With Almas?
Manager.
Vega.
Dio.
Zelina Vega.
Yeah, Dio, that's our card. But that match was really good. And then the tag team match, I was shocked on the ending of that one. This title change hands, I was like, wow.
And
that was a really good one.
And the Red Dragon run in.
Yeah, they came out, and I was shocked that they had a NXT run out. I mean, we had with Seth Rollins, was that Chicago or WrestleMania? That one before Mania, you had Seth Rollins come out, but that was a good one to have, and I just woke the baby up. But let's see what happened the next match. What was the next one, Peter? I can't remember the order.
Oh, so the lineup was Almas Gargano. You had AOP versus Sanity. You also had Ember Moon versus Asuka.
Oh yes, that was a really good one as well. It was a slow pace for that particular match. But before that one, you had Jim Ross come on commentary.
Yes.
I loved that. I didn't get to watch, I didn't get to listen to his commentary because I was on the phone.
Alexander Black.
Really
Alistair Black.
Yes.
Yeah, and Hideo Itami, yes.
Yes, that was a really good one as well. All the matches was good. I love the surprise. I felt like a kid again watching all the way to the main event. That's why I didn't really care for. It was okay. I didn't even like the event going into it. So I thought maybe Rather Strong was going to be like in a triple threat, but we didn't get that. So it was an okay match. I would never see that for a TV taping, but it was okay. Overall, I would give this show a solid A. You don't have that many matches. The show was under 3 hours. The crowd was in it, so it made me more interested in the product. So it might be my favorite takeover, like all the matches, because the previous one I might like one or two matches more than the other, than the whole show.
Mm-hmm.
So I really enjoy it. I recommend wrestling fans and non-wrestling fans to watch that. So.
Well, be sure to check out this podcast, and so we can make it short, so I can get you back. I can be like, well, I felt this way. Check out what I said, and let's catch up sometime this week and do like a sort of review together of SummerSlam, because this is my anniversary. This is my 3rd year doing reviews.
I tweet you on Twitter. It was like, hey, Peter.
I know.
Did you want to be on my post show having tonight? If you still want to be on there.
I won't be available. I won't be available.
Okay, well, are you available tomorrow? Do you want to come on the Keita and Jay show? We're having a show next Saturday or Sunday. Well, Jay, he's going to be on there because he don't watch it live. Okay,
it would have to be either Saturday or the Monday show because, again, the screen printing thing has me by the balls. I'm forcing myself to do these because it's SummerSlam and NXT, whatever. But like, I would love to get on. If there's a spot next Monday, that's my day off. I'll be able to join, but we can discuss more. I just want to let you guys know I'm strange, but I'm not a stranger. Okay.
I got you. Yeah, because I was thinking about you yesterday. Oh wow, he's actually available for once in his life.
I know, and I wanted to let you guys know, but I really wanted to get your thoughts and opinions on this thing, and we can extend it into the next time we get to talk. Hopefully next Thursday is what I'm shooting for. If you're available.
Text me or remind me, because I do the NXT show as well.
Yes, okay.
NXT podcast, so just remind me. But I should be free, but it might be late. If you want to go on a weekday, like Tuesday through Friday, it has to be late.
Yes, that works perfectly.
Okay, after 11 o'clock p.m. late.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I have to get to bed early anyway because of my job, but yeah. And this makes for good podcasting, by the way, too.
Oh yeah, you kind of shocked me. I thought you were calling me about SummerSlam or something. I was like, what is? I was like, okay, wow, okay. So.
Nah, we still got it going. We still got the family thing going. Again, I apologize for being so distant. But
no, you're fine. I know you're busy. Hey, I totally understand. And we'll be taking a break for podcasting, so you're fine. Well, I have Jay is on a whole different planet right now.
Yes,
but,
you are.
Yeah, so he's doing his thing with the TV Zone podcast, and I'm just sticking to my mellow stuff because I can't take too much on.
Yeah. So give a plug real quick, and give a plug real quick.
Okay, well, follow the Keita J Show on the Twitter. At the Keita and J Show, or check out the We Talk NXT podcast. We actually did a post show for the Takeover. Myself, Moneymaker Chris, he's my new co-host of NXT podcast, and Mr. J Job. So we went over the Takeover Brooklyn card. So check that out. It should be available on Monday. I don't know when you're posting this, but it should be available Monday on SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes.
I'm posting this tonight. I'm posting at least the video to this. I'm posting this tonight and try to get the audio up tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
Well, all right. Get back to your best friend. I'm glad you picked up. I'm happy that this was able to happen. I'm gonna go ahead and close up shop here.
Shocker, yeah.
Hey, it's called a run-in, the swerve.
You ain't lying. But thank you for calling. I appreciate it.
All right, girl. Have a good one.
Right.
Enjoy the show.
You too, bro.
Oh, so that worked out. I hope the audio was good. Again, it was just from my phone. I hope it worked out. But other than that, thank you for checking out this podcast. Thank you for checking out this podcast. I'm going to be uploading the video now, so I guess after SummerSlam, you could tune in and check out my predictions, because I was thinking, man, if I did all the predictions, all the reviews all in one, I wouldn't have the time, because I know it would be just too long of a podcast, and I know that I wouldn't have been able to get it done. I would have been overwhelmed. So this part is done. The SummerSlam review will be up maybe Tuesday, or no, I plan on doing it Thursday. I apologize, but it's going to be basically the SummerSlam and then the fallout on Monday Night Raw in Brooklyn, and that's going to be the podcast. And hopefully we'll have Keita on to give her take on everything as well. So thank you so much for checking out this prediction show. This review show. And be sure, again, to check out my predictions of both SummerSlam and NXT to see what's up. I'm excited about doing these podcasts, but after these, I'm going to have to take another sabbatical until we get around. It feels good to all the homies that are checking this out and like, yeah, awesome, he's back on the podcast scene. I'm not on the podcast scene. I just want to get these things out. I love you guys. Until then, I'm out. Enjoy SummerSlam. And watch out for those foreign objects, man. Peace.